by the distance traveled by investigators when conducting the investigation, and also the high case intake in those identified areas. Therefore, funding that has been used to travel and accommodations will be redirected to operations of the reopening of the satellite offices, because we have been spending more on those areas due to lack of satellite offices. Chair, questions number 7 by Honorable Mitchell Case. How will IPID address the increase in complaints from Free State given the decline resources? Chair, the response is as follows from IPID. IPID uses the following criteria to allocate the resources in provinces. The first criteria that we use during our budget allocation is we consider the size of the province, we consider the case intake, we also consider the number of investigations allocated to each and every province. Free State Provincial Office has been allocated more investigators as compared to other provinces with the same size and case intake. The case intake increases was mainly experienced during the COVID-19 period. In case of province is not coping, additional resources will be allocated through the sharing of our available investigators. But at this moment, they have not indicated any challenge to address all the matters that they've received. Question 8 from the Honorable Zandamela. The relocation of building is rented or bought by IPID. What informed the decision? Chair, IPID will be renting the building that has been identified through the Department of Public Works. The current departmental budget allocations allow the rental, not the buying of the office. So we are basically saying the office that will be moving to the office that has been sourced by Department of Public Works on behalf of IPID. Honorable Mutsamai asked number 9 questions. What is the problem with the outstanding cases? The answer from IPID is as follows. IPID is committed to investigate and complete all cases reported. IPID will consider the establishment of intervention team to assist provinces where the need arise. The investigation in some of the cases are taking longer, mainly due to delay in obtaining the postmortem report and unavailability of witnesses, particularly during the lockdown period. The department is currently developing a database on panel of experts to assist in fast-tracking the finalization of cases. The panel of experts will assist IPID, particularly on the postmortem, because we'll be using the private pathologists instead of state pathologists in the Department of Health. Question 10, Honorable Nkita. How is IPID going to address the capacity constraints? IPID is continuously striving to reprioritize the reduced expenditure on non-core budget items to our core business, which is investigation. In order to align with the available budget, the department reprioritized high-impact cases such as death, rape, gender-based violence, and corruption cases. Chair, that was the last question from Honorable Nkita. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you, honourable members. Thank you, IPID, for the responses. Honourable members, I'll take another round of questions and then I'll start addressing the COSA judgment. I haven't seen any hands in the chat. Could you indicate in the... Sheikh Imam, wait, could I take hands first?
Mola.
Mola, thank you, Honorable Mola. Shembeni. I've got Shembeni.
Terblanche.
Terblanche. Groenewald. Whitfield. Mofokeng, are you on? Mapatse?
No, Chair, my hand is not up.
Okay, thank you. Any other hands? All right, could I start then with Sheikh Imam and then Mola and Shembeni?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to IPID for that.
Sorry, could the other members please mute their mics?
Okay, thank you, Chair, and thank you to IPID for that presentation. Now, what is very clear, Chair, and I think, the response we got is not satisfactory and perhaps not the fault of IPID themselves. They've already had a challenge in terms of being able to do justice to their investigations, particularly with time frames and the limited resources that they've got. Now, they've been getting an average of about 25 complaints against SAPS members on a daily basis previously. The numbers are now substantially increasing as a result of COVID-19, and COVID-19 is expected to continue for perhaps another year. Now, with these budget constraints that they have, they must tell us exactly what is really going to happen, because then it means they're going to have a massive backlog with the limited capacity and with the limited budget. What other measures are they planning to take? And secondly, my question is, what percentage of the complaints that you get against SAPS members are related to corruption? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mola.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for your presentation. In slide 24, on strategic plan, you said cases are increased from 1,304, and you are saying these cases are referred to NPA for decision or whether to prosecute or not to prosecute. When did you refer them to the NPA, and are you making follow-ups? My second one, increase in number of disciplinary recommendation. Can you please send us all these disciplinary casing in writing? Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Shembeni.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, Honorable Shembeni, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Mine is about the investigation in terms of corruption on the top management of the SAPS. How many cases do we have that are being investigated by IPID whereby the top management is involved? And how long have these cases been under investigation? Are there any consequences whereby we have some members being arrested or dismissed or whatsoever? I just want to find out specifically on the top management of the SAPS. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Shembeni. Honorable Tablanche.
Chairperson, thank you. Chairperson, I want to start by thanking them for their presentation, but Chairperson, I am very concerned. You know, we are dealing here with an underfunded, under-resourced, underperforming department. Chairperson, in 2018-19, they were a lot of cases was closed by IPID. 2015 cases were closed. Chairperson, they referred 23 cases to the National Prosecuting Authority, and with no success whatsoever. Chairperson, if you look at their budget, the major part of the budget goes to, you know, personnel and whatever. There's a little small amount left, you know, for the actual work that they're supposed to be doing. And even so, then they're still looking at getting additional officers for a personnel strength that is going down. It doesn't make sense, Chairperson. Chairperson, and then, you know, we heard about this judgment now. Chairperson, the minister has failed his duty. He should have appointed the executive director of IPID a long time ago. You know, this whole process is dragging on now since the first judgment now for 4 years. Chairperson, we cannot go on like this and pretend that everything is honky-dory. It's not honky-dory. The minister must come explain to this committee what is he going to do to rectify this situation. Chairperson, really, he failed the South Africa and he failed this committee. Chairperson, this is my input for now. I've got a lot more to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Groenewald.
Thank you, Chair. Well, firstly, I want to know, can we now also ask about the court case on certain questions, because I have quite a lot of questions on that, or are you going to do it in another round? That's the first thing. But if I can come back to the answer given to me, Chairperson, I'm not satisfied. I want to hear from IPID, how do they define then a COVID-19 operation? Because the statistics given was in the period of the lockdown. Now, IPID makes a distinguish between the lockdown period and then cases related to a COVID-19 operation. Can I get that definition, please? Because as far as I'm concerned, we want to know how many cases has been submitted to IPID in this period. And for instance, if it is an unlawful arrest, how do they know and how do they distinguish whether it is COVID-19 related or not? That is what I want in detail, please. Thank you.
Just before they do come in, Honorable Groenewald, we have 3 hours for this meeting. A half an hour is gone. So today we have sufficient time to get to the details of what is happening at IPID. That is why I said to you, we need a follow-up meeting for IPID, and I'm sure you all appreciate that I got this additional time. So please, if you want to combine the COSA judgment, because we have been speaking about the appointment of the IPID head, and irrespective of the COSA judgment, the IPID head has been a bone of contention. So if there's matters which you'd like to raise, which overlap with the COSA judgment, I will understand. But for now, please understand that you still have 2.5 hours, and there's no way I don't have any plane to catch, and I don't think any other member has a plane to catch. So we have sufficient time if you are available. Honorable Whitfield. Whitfield.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, I have 3 or 4 questions, and thank you very much for creating this opportunity for us to revisit the IPID presentation. Chair, my question for IPID is, when it comes to the issue of decision-ready targets, a lot has been said about this, in particular by APCOF, when it comes to decision-ready targets. How is IPID rectifying the issue where decision-ready targets place the emphasis on case closure or completion of cases as opposed to the quality of the investigation? I have raised this repeatedly, and we see when the NPA declines to prosecute more than 70% of cases referred, that there must be a problem with the quality of these investigations. So how do they determine the quality of the investigations, and will they be collaborating with APCOF in terms of their recommendations in their report to improve the annual performance plan going forward? Because to a large extent, it's a copy and paste exercise from previous APPs. On one of the slides in the presentation, Chair, they refer to case docket inspections. The target is 5. Can they explain what that indicator is about and why there are only 5 case docket inspections set as a target for each year? And perhaps IPID can tell us, if we consider the remarks regarding IPID in the judgment and the comments made by this committee over a number of years, what is the optimal budget required for IPID to operate at full capacity? And by full capacity, I mean for them to have their full staff complement and to ensure that they are able to adjust their targets upwards and make sure that the case backlog is dealt with. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Whitfield. Honourable Mapatswe.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. So now that the issue of the IPID head has been raised and the executive is not here, maybe should we wait for the DM to log in? If he's here, I will raise it. But if he's not here, I will wait until. But let me not wait. We will repeat even if he comes, because the issue of the IPID head really, it has been for a long time that the IPID has not been having the IPID head, the executive. And you can't have a department that will perform to its maximum if you don't have a head. I did raise it last, that the staff, there's a shortage of staff in IPID. I remember last financial year, we promised that we will support them to get more budget in order to fulfill their mandate. But the issue of the IPID head, Chair, we need the executive to be here, because personally I can't really allow that. You have 2 years. You have been allowed even to headhunt. He reported to us, the minister, that they are going to headhunt. So you can't fail to headhunt. You know, if you are going to headhunt, you know the person that you want, because you are headhunting. So they should have long filled this position of the IPID head. So I want us as a committee to raise it very strong that we have a time frame of giving the executive, it's either a month for them to get to fill the post of the IPID head. The second thing, it's a I don't know whether it will be correct, but the last time we said to IPID, don't bring cases that are not finalized to us whilst they are still investigating them. Maybe what we need to do to say to IPID is, just when we call them, to clarify us that there are so many cases that we are still investigating, just to keep the committee informed that we are aware about these cases. Then when they finalize them, they can come to the committee, then we can be able to ask questions. Why did you not find this one guilty? Because of the seriousness of the case. Maybe it will assist us, because if we bring cases that are still under investigation, you can't force IPID to say anything, because it will say it is still under investigation. But it is going to be difficult for IPID to perform its duty, because it is lacking to fill the vacancies, especially at your investigative level, and you need experienced people. So I would really plead, Chair, that the issue of the IPID, when the deputy minister comes in, the IPID head be raised, that we want to have a time frame. When are they going to appoint? If they don't have time frame, we can give them the time frame to say we want the IPID head by next month. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, honourable members. I think that it is very clear IPID will not be able to respond on the matter of the appointment of the executive director. But what Honourable Mapatswe is saying is extremely relevant. All the members have been asking about the appointment of the executive director of IPID. We can no longer just discuss the matter. Parliament and this portfolio committee, and now I think we have more muscle because it's a joint committee, should be giving the minister a deadline for the appointment of the executive director. We would have been failing in our oversight duty if we do not do so. When I think it is recorded in the judgment that there's reasons of inadequacy of funding and provision of trained personnel, and that IPID is not always in a position to investigate complaints. And if you do not have the ability to investigate complaints properly and efficiently, how do you think the public could have faith and confidence in the independent investigative directorate? When we do discuss the COSA judgment, we need to bear in mind that there are a number of cases that have been reported now. We are told that these cases are being investigated, it's alleged. But when you have an incident where a journalist is being chased and a journalist is being victimized, there is absolutely no way in which you can turn a blind eye. I think it is time that IPID, even if these cases are still being investigated, that IPID gives us clear indications of what they are doing. When we get to the COSA judgment, and I give members the opportunity during that round, we definitely have to nail down certain areas, a program of action. As we are saying, there's this evasion of answers, and we cannot continue like this. I'll give IPID an opportunity to speak now.
Chair, can you note me before you give IPID?
Sorry, I'm coming for another round.
I want to ask you only one question, Chairperson.
Honorable Mola, I'll take you.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. I want to ask the IPID, is there a stability at IPID? Because each and every time they are changing the acting EDs, is there a stability in the organization?
Mola, are you done? Honorable members, our mics are on. We can hear all kinds of background noises. When someone is speaking, could you please mute your mics? Honorable Mofo King, would you like to come in now?
Yes, Chair. Thank you
very
very
much.
much.
The opportunity.
I think I want to come on what Honorable Mapatsa was talking about, that we need to have the executive to be part of us to deal with IPID. For me, it's not only about the head. It's also about the stability in IPID itself in terms of their working relationship. Because what Honorable Mola was saying, this changing of leadership and all that, it should be doing something amongst the members. Do they have their grievances? If there are any grievances, who is dealing with them? That is one. And the other thing is that, Chair, on the issue of cases, as Honorable Mapatsa was saying, maybe we should not get them as numbers. I differ. I think that we should get cases as they come in per police station, per province, and so that we can be able to monitor them. because I don't think I've ever seen anywhere where they have a case monitoring. And we will be able to see cases of, things that you see or you hear about on the media or you read about on the media, that the police has chased a man and a man fell and the man got a heart attack and then IPID said it's not their problem. Those are things that will worry one. And I think that we need to have a schedule and a plan from them. But definitely, I feel there's a problem at IPID. And for the acting Mr. Steady, we cannot just throw everything to him because I don't know what number is he now as an acting. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mofokeng. Honorable Faku.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, first, let me also just agree to what Honorable Whip has said, because remember, even in the judgment in 2016 between the Minister of Police and McBride, the former IPID head, the court had some rulings that it made on this matter of the IPID head, but also requested Parliament to review the act of the IPID. If you look into that judgment, and I see that the matter was sent to the NCOP, it's waiting for President. Perhaps the table must just check with the President when it comes to that. But really, I think for us as a committee, it is important that we get time frames on the appointment of the IPID head. The institution needs to have stability because currently there's no stability at all. We have this person that comes and acts, and we have the second person that comes and acts, and really we can't hold the acting person really accountable. The minister must give us time frame. He did come to the committee and explain to us that they are currently looking for people to come and for the position, and we're still waiting for that feedback. Maybe there can be a provision. We understand that we're operating under abnormal circumstances, but we need to have time frames when it regards to this, because even as Parliament, we have not adhered to the court judgment of 2016 to say that we are given a certain, I think it was 24 months for us to amend the IPID Act. So I think really it's very critical. But one thing that I want to also say is, Chair, I think it is important for the IPID. Sometimes we understand they are trying their best under the circumstances, because we also understand that IPID is operating under severe pressure in terms of cases that are coming in, and also financial constraints. So what we want, like the IPID must be able to respond if there's a case on the media. At least what they need to do, their communication department must beef up a little bit and respond to issues, because sometimes they give the people out there a perception what is said about them is true. So sometimes they need to at least beef up their communication side of things to respond to issues, because sometimes they just leave issues and they don't respond. But also, especially under COVID-19 crisis that we have, I think maybe the acting head of IPID, before provinces close down on cases, as the head of IPID, he must first satisfy himself with these cases before cases are said to be closed, like for us to experience the same case as COSA, but we'll go to COSA when you give us the second round. I think that must happen, Chair, as we're moving forward, because currently as a committee, we can't lie and say that we're happy of what is happening to IPID. We as a committee, we must not repeat what has happened in the past. We must make sure that the IPID head is appointed within a stipulated time. And I'm worried that the ministry is not here to respond, because really these are serious issues, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, Sheikh Imam, can you just wait for IPID to respond, and then I'll take another round of questions. We will, when we're done with this questions, please, I said there's overlaps, Honorable Whitfield, there's overlaps between the presentation and the judgment, but I have sufficient time to take all the questions today. So I'm not going to be rushing anybody or calling anybody to order. We certainly are sitting with a serious problem at IPID, and this has to be taken very cautiously. We will ensure that the minister gets a recording of this meeting, and whatever decisions are taken here today will ensure that the minister does respond to our questions. I'll give IPID an opportunity to speak now.
Okay, thanks, Chair, and thanks to honorable members for their questions. Chair, I've got the team of management. They will come in on some of the answers. Chair, I will start with the question raised by, maybe let me start with the one that raised by Honorable Faku. Chair, with regard to the quality assurance on the investigation. Chair, I fully agree, Chair. Some of the cases we noticed that they are closed prematurely. And Chair, I've since issued a directive in my acting capacity last week to all the provincial heads and sensitize them to make sure that they do thorough investigation on all the cases that are reported to IPID. Chair, in addition to that, as one of the measures, I've extended the scope of I've established during the COVID-19 to deal with statistics, a confirmation of the statistics and verification. I've extended their scope to also play a quality assurer role on all the cases. So which clearly means in addition to the quality assurance that is performed by provincial intake committee, there will be a national committee that will look into those cases before they can be closed. That is the intervention, Chair, that we have put in place to assist IPID in terms of the quality of the investigation that is conducted in all the provinces. Chair, with regard to the communication, still under Honorable Fagu, Chair, I fully agree. Communication, that is the part that we've been lacking. We have lost our director communication, who has been our spokesperson. We have since seconded one of our investigator from Eastern Cape to assist us. We have finalized the appointment of the director communication. She's expected to start from the 1st of June. So, Chair, I think there will be an improvement and stability in that area once the permanent director communication starts. And I agree that we need to respond. Some of the allegations that are made by journalists through the media are unfounded, and we need IPID communication to response to such. Chair, with regard to the details, Chair, I agree, Chair, and I also like the fact that members realize the capacity challenges, including the financial constraints. But Chair, what we have done with the limited capacity that we have since taken a decision of addressing the high impact cases, Chair. High impact cases, we are basically saying, Chair, if there are 2 cases that have been reported, 1 death and 1 assault, with our limited resources, we should be able to address the death cases immediately, not really saying we are not going to investigate the assault, or the assault is not important. But we are looking at our resources, and we do what we can do within the limited resources that we've been having. So that's what we are saying. High impact cases are given attention. Chair, with regard to the Honorable Mola, the cases that were referred to MPID, to NPA, Chair, we do have cases that are referred to NPA, and there are responses that are given to IPID. We give a monthly report to our minister as well as the secretariat in terms of our IPID Act, and we can even share the details of such cases as well as the outcome with the honorable members. And Chair, the other question was the disciplinary cases in writing to SAPS. Chair, we can also provide by early next week a detailed disciplinary case recommendation that has been made to SAPS, as well as the responses that we receive from SAPS. That can be made available in details to the honorable members for their reference. Chair, the stability, Chair, with regard to the stability, I think the only issue, Chair, is in terms of the personnel, is the IPID head. But as far as other positions are concerned, Chair, the moment they become vacant, HR assist and facilitate the appointment of such. So in terms of the ordinary operational, Chair, I don't think there's an issue of stability. The only problem is the capacity, like we are saying. The study that was conducted when IPID Act was established was that we need not less than 535 positions to run the IPID Act. But Chair, we are sitting today with the 391 position. So we need more investigators so that we can deal with the number and volume of cases that we receive, Chair. So stability, I don't think, Chair, that is a problem. The problem is the capacity, particularly in an investigation environment. Chair, with regard to the question raised by Honorable Shembeni on corruption, Chair, IPID is currently working with the ID, the investigative directorate that has been established within the NPA. We have scheduled a meeting next week with the directorate to look at all the cases. Recommendation have been made to the NPA on all those cases. So we are meeting with them to also check the progress that have been made on corruption related to top police members. So after our meeting, we'll be knowing the progress that have been made by ID in all the cases related to top police members. But we are working with investigative directorate. Chair, with regard to the distinguish between the lockdown or COVID-19 cases as well as other cases, Chair, as we have indicated, when we defined a lockdown or COVID-19 cases, we are referring to all cases that incidents happen during the COVID-19 operations. And there are other cases, Chair, that are outside. Cases that incidents happened even before the lockdown, but they were brought to the attention of the IPID during the lockdown. So we are mainly saying, Chair, those cases are not COVID-related cases because those incidences happen long before the lockdown or the COVID-19 can start. Some of the cases are just a domestic violence, Chair, where a wife or the husband will raise the case with an IPID, and we are saying such cases, when we go and analyze them, they've got nothing to do with COVID-19. So those are the cases that we are saying we've got an intake and we've got a COVID-19 related. So, Chair, we are basically saying all cases that were registered under IPID under COVID-19 operations were classified as COVID-19 related cases, Chair. Chair, the other question that was raised by the Honorable Sheikh is with regard to limited capacity and how are we going to deal with cases that were registered, particularly the increased number of cases due to COVID-19. Chair, when we started the lockdown, we followed all the instructions and worked with the skeleton staff. Some of our investigators, they were on standby and some they were working from home. But since we realized the increase in numbers of cases, we have since in my directive that I've issued in my capacity as acting ED, I've requested that all the investigators, they must be brought back so that they can deal with all the cases. But that must happen within all the compliance with regard to the PPEs and other things to avoid any health issues, Chair. So all investigators in some of the provinces, they've been brought back. They are dealing with these cases. We are expecting that the intervention will assist to speed up the cases that we have received and the increase in numbers. Chair, in terms of the questions that were raised by Honorable Wintham, Chair, I will start with the APCOF. APCOF is one of IPID's external stakeholders. We have been engaging with APCOF on a number of occasions. We were also supposed to meet with APCOF to discuss our APP as well as the strategic document. However, due to the lockdown, we were unable to do that. But we've been talking to them. Even last week, we communicated with them. We are planning to have a meeting soon, also to look into their inputs. Chair, their inputs will be discussed. Once we agree on their inputs, particularly on our strategic and operational plan, we'll then have to formulate them in our SOPs as well as our policies for implementation in the current financial year. Chair, with regard to the other question that were raised by Honorable Winfrey to say, IPID, does it know exactly how much they want? Yes, Chair, we know exactly how much we want in order to have a fully fledged capacity. Chair, there's an expansion strategy that was developed, presented to the previous administration portfolio committee, as well as to the National Treasury. In that expansion strategy, Chair, we have increased the footprint of IPID in all the provinces. We have given all the resources that are required and they are costed. We were talking about 230 million, Chair, last financial year on the expansion strategy. The figure might change in the new financial year. So, Chair, yes, there is an expansion strategy. We can also make a copy available to the honorable members to look at the plans that IPID made to expand its work. Chair, a question and related to, I think, Honorable Mapato. Yes, Chair, I agree, and I also like the fact that Honorable Mapato respect the fact that there are cases that are still under investigation. At this moment, Chair, we are not in a position to say much about those cases. We can only share with the members what IPID has done. Like some of the cases that we have presented, particularly the death cases related to COVID-19, we have given a status on each and every cases where we were saying we are still waiting for technical reports, we are still waiting for post-mortem reports. So IPID can do up to that level. But other than that, we will have to wait for the external members to assist us so that we can finalize those cases. Honorable Chairperson also raised a question related to the feedback case, the issue of journalists. Chair, we have tried our best on this case. After this case was brought to our attention as IPID, we dispatched a team of investigators to feedback to go and meet with the complainant. They met briefly and they agreed to meet on the following day, which was the Wednesday. But after our investigators tried to contact that person, the phone was off, and the investigators went to the relatives of the journalist, and they were told that the journalist in his house. They went to his house, they did not find him. They've been trying to get hold of the journalist, but they did not get hold of him. We make a call that we even issue a statement yesterday that the journalist must try to contact IPID investigators in the province or national office so that he can be assisted. And he was also assured, Chairperson, that should he feel that his life is under risk or danger, he must make IPID available so that all the necessary and relevant steps can be taken to protect him. But up to today, Chair, the latest information that was brought to IPID was that the complainant has fled the country to Lesotho. So we don't even know today what led to that. We don't even know whether there is any threat against the complainant, Chair. But as IPID, we have tried to assist. We have engaged with the complainant, Chair. Chair, I'm going to request the last question, Chair, from Ms. Honorable Mofokeng. Chair, I fully agree with the Honorable Mofokeng on the report that she's requesting. Chair, we do have that report. We have the report in details of all the cases that have been reported to IPID, classification of such cases, police stations, as well as the case numbers and the progress that have been made. The report is available. I've requested the team to send it to the secretary yesterday. If the report has not been received, Chair, we can still share with all the honorable members the report on all the cases that we have received in details, including the police stations, as well as the suspects in those cases, Chair. Chair, I'm going to ask my team to fill some of the gaps in some of the questions that I might have not addressed.
Can I continue?
Yes, Chairperson.
Afternoon, Chair. Thanks very much. And let me also give thanks to the honorable members. My response will be on the question made by Honorable Winfield about the decision-ready cases vis-a-vis the quality. Indeed, we do have the decision-ready dockets. Those are the dockets that are currently with the courts, and some indeed they are having further instructions by the courts with queries that still needs to be attended to. But in terms of the quality, Chair, what happens is that before we regard a case as being decision ready, the case is checked thoroughly by the management at the province. So you'd have the supervisor who's directly dealing with the investigation, giving instructions to the investigator, who then do the quality check and refer the matter to the provincial head or the deputy provincial head to also do the checking before confirming that indeed this matter is decision ready. And then once it is decision ready, there is a report that is compiled for the attention of the NPA, and the other matters, of course, are referred to the SAPS for decision. So indeed, we do acknowledge that there are times where, in instances where the matter is referred, and the courts will maybe come up with further instructions for those matters to receive further attention. But due to the magnitude of the cases, it is indeed difficult sometimes for our members to respond to those instructions timeously because of the volume. We do have figures, honorable members, in terms of how many decision or rather post-decision monitoring dockets are we talking about. But they are in huge numbers. The figures that I'm having here, they are a lot, and indeed, the provinces are doing their best indeed to try and make sure that all of these matters receive attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, I've noted Sheikh Iman, Whitfield, Groenewald. Do I have more hands?
Chair, I raised my hand.
Just
Chair.
The Blanche. The
Chair, raised my
chair,
hand as well.
yes, the chair of the select committee. Any other hands? We could start with Sheikh Iman.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to our colleagues from IPID. Let me start off by saying, Chair, I think they did not respond to my question on what percentage of the matters that you're dealing with currently are corruption related. But I think I will then add on to that also those, what percentage is gender-based violence and the theft of firearms. But Chair, one of my questions is that I'd like IPID to tell us how independent do they believe they are, whether there is indeed any interference or reluctance from witnesses and things to in getting statements and things where there's collusions between those that are accused and other officers assisting them. Are they having a problem? Is there any interference from higher authority in SAPS to try and suppress their investigation in any of the investigations that they are doing currently on the SAPS members? Now that brings me to the issue of what, in your view, after many of these investigations that you are doing or conducting, in your view, is the root cause of the attitude and behavior of SAPS members, particularly when it comes to violent acts and things like that against members of society? And I'm going to, give you a specific example. If you talk about the attack at that mosque in Mpumalanga, and I call it an attack because indeed they went there to arrest those that were in violation of the regulations. But before they did that, there was a massive verbal attack on those people, 99% of which was unnecessary. All they needed to do was go there and arrest them for what they were doing, which was wrong. So do you think it is as a result, and whether we should be providing some kind of ongoing training for SAPS members in to understand better what is their responsibilities? And remember, I've said this before, that very often and in all fields of employment, you are employing people when you advertise who desperately need a job, and so they take any job that is advertised. That's why I suggested at one stage introduce it in the curriculum of schools from 10, 11, and 12, and continue to do their diploma or degree in policing and whatever it is. After that, same thing in the health sector. Then you get people with a passion and know and understand what their responsibility. Right now, there's a lot of accusation even against SAPS members in terms of COVID-19. And many of it, I can tell you, you don't blame SAPS members because this is not their expertise and their forte. They are expected to do all these things. So I want you to tell us, in what did you identify as some of the root causes? Are you having some engagement with senior SAPs to be able to tell them what you've identified and making recommendation that we're finding A, B, and C? Maybe you need to look at it. I want to know, because what we want ultimately is to identify the root causes in many of those, find solutions to it so it doesn't continue. And lastly, I think I want you to tell me, are you following up in those cases that are reported to NPA, those that have been found guilty, to see whether your hard work that you put was not in vain, whether the state was even able to go through the asset forfeiture unit, whatever it is, recover monies from these people, and yes, of course. And lastly, what percentage of these people that you are investigating are still operating as officers, or what percentage of them are suspended and until you finalize your investigation, particularly with corruption? You can't continue operating as an officer when there's serious allegations of corruption against you. I'll stop there now for Chair. We're not touching yet, Chair, on the issue of the case before us, the causa matter. Am I correct?
We're getting there. So if you want to mention anything, but we're getting there. You have enough time today. We still have 2 hours. Yeah. Thank you very much, Honorable Whitfield.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much to Mr. Sitsedi for his refreshing approach to the responses. Much appreciated. I do just want to ask whether the issue of case docket inspections was actually answered. I didn't hear that response, and the question was if they can just explain to the committee that indicator, what the purpose of that indicator is, and why the target appears to be so low. At 5 per year over the next 3 years. And Chair, you did indicate earlier that the issue of the judgment is overlapping with this presentation. So I'd like to take the opportunity to make a comment. Other members have made a comment on the judgment.
You're welcome to do so. You're welcome to do so.
Thank you, and thank you to you, Chair, and the team on the committee for producing that research report. I just would like to caution the committee, Chair, that I believe there's a very important principle that the committee must take note of before we continue to ask the Minister to appoint the head of IPID. We know that the IPID Act gives the Minister the powers to appoint the head of IPID, but we also know from the McBride judgment that the constitutional principle that was underpinned in the judgment was that the executive in the office of the minister could not be involved in removing the head of IPID because it had related to undermining the independence of IPID. And I fear that if the committee does not take cognizance of the fact that that principle of independence will also apply to the appointment of the head, there are many people who feel that that judgment in the McBride judgment didn't go far enough in dealing with the appointment of the IPID head. And I suggest that the committee should commission some research into the matter in order for us to make sure that we get this process right. Because I fear that asking the minister to appoint a head of IPID is actually not going to solve the core problem, which is an independent police watchdog. As long as the executive maintains power over the appointment of the head of an independent watchdog, that watchdog still has questions over it relating to its independence. And what we have at the moment is what appears to be a culture of police abuse in a militarized police service within a culture of a lack of accountability, or certainly no respect from SAPS of the Independent Police Investigative Directorate. And I fear that the role the minister plays in the appointment may lead to a culture of what feels like a culture of impunity among some police officers, when they should have a healthy fear and respect for the work that IPID does. So I just wanted to put that on the table, Chair. I think it's important that we take cognizance of the McBride judgment, as the principle will relate, I believe, to the appointment of the head as it does to the removal. Thank you very much.
Honourable Whitfield, I think the McBride judgment has been mentioned in the committee meeting today. Honourable Faku and Honourable Mapatswe mentioned the fact that that McBride judgment happened in 2016, where the Constitutional Court ordered Parliament to look at the defects in the relevant legislation, and that Parliament had to respond within 24 months. That would have been 2018. We are 4 years later, nearly 4 years later, and we still haven't finalized the matter. Could I have, Groenewald?
Thank you, Chair. What you have just said is a very, very serious allegation towards the Portfolio Committee of Police, because we have to look into that legislation. And with great respect, I've said before in our meetings that we must realize that we as Portfolio Committee have certain obligations as well as certain powers, and we don't use them. But that's just a comment. Chairperson, I'm not satisfied with my answer.
Sorry, Honourable Groenewald, before you go ahead, just for information, remember that new bill had lapsed after the last Parliament. So we reactivated the bill. It was then referred to the NCOP. It was passed through the NCOP, and we're waiting now for the presidency to have a look at it. We have discussed the matter and with the presidency. So if the matter is not, as the cycle, the parliamentary cycle has been completed. So I don't think that we should completely be blamed for the lack of completion of the amendment. But what Honourable Whitfield is saying is correct. You know, do we appoint the executive director before that act is ascended to, or do we expect that an executive director is appointed immediately? But when we get to the judgment, we'll look at that. Honourable Groenewald, I'm sorry for interrupting you.
It's fine, Chair. Now I understand that process, but then we must find out at the presidency what is the problem. Okay, be that what it is. Now, I want to come back to the answer on the definition, because I specifically asked, what is the criteria, what is the definition of a COVID-19 operation? Now, after the answer, I have even more questions, because it was said that there are quite a lot of cases that happened before the lockdown period that has been added to the statistics. But if I look at the statistics, it says quite clearly, okay, it says received cases related to COVID-19 operations from 26 March to 5th of May. And then it says out of the 828 cases received, 376 cases related to COVID-19 operations. So less than 50% of the complaints received in that period are actually COVID-19 operations. And that's why I asked, what does IPID define a COVID-19 operation? It was referred to as domestic violence. And the way I understood it is that when there was a case of domestic violence, it has not been seen as a COVID-19 operation. So can I please get a clear definition of what is a COVID-19 operation? Or must I give you a definition on that? The other thing is, Chairperson, that I also want to ask from IPID whether they have been approached, for instance, by the Minister or the Commissioner, and I specifically refer to the COSA case, because part of the COSA case is that there should be a mechanism where the public can lay complaints against torture and everything. In fact, I think it says that the mechanism for civilians, and it must be very much accessible to the public. Now, my question to IPID is whether they were approached by the minister and the commissioner of how that mechanism is going to work. Are they going to play a role into that? Because in the end, according to the Act, IPID has to investigate certain matters when it comes to the police. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Tablanche, and then Honourable Chair of the Select Committee, and then Honourable Faku. Honourable Tablanche.
Chairperson, thank you. Chairperson, I wanted to, just start where I stopped earlier. I'm glad to see that the Deputy Minister joined us in the meantime. Chairperson,
sorry, just sorry for interrupting you. Welcome, Honourable Deputy Minister. We know you have been in a media conference, and the press conference went very well. Honourable Deputy Minister will give you an opportunity to speak later after Honourable Faku. Tablanche.
Chairperson, thank you. As I said, I'm glad to see that the Deputy Minister joined us now, because Chairperson, the responsibility of this committee is to keep, to the executive to account, and we haven't had the opportunity to have either the minister or the deputy minister here. So I'm glad that the deputy minister joined, and maybe he must, just update himself after this meeting what we said. Chairperson, regarding the judgment, we must remember that we have a second judgment now. And, obviously, I think it will be fair that a process should be started, to look into possible amendments that will be necessary or due to the last judgment now. So the parliamentary process must maybe started. That is just a suggestion from my side. Chairperson, and then lastly, we are flooded, and if I say we, I refer to us in the DA, by complaints against IPID and the police. And the main complaint against IPID is the inaccessibility of them, that the public cannot reach them. And really, that is a serious concern, Chairperson. I just wanted also to record that and, bring it to the attention of the committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Sheikh.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, I think in terms of the COSA judgment, as it relates to IPID, the issues that are raised there have also been issues that we, as the Joint Committee, have also been raising with IPID over these various days. But Chair, I think it's important that, and the questions relating to the stability in IPID, that we actually look into this matter much more deeply. But also in terms of the suggestions around providing the minister with a time frame in terms of the appointment of the executive director would also be an important area that we should look at. But I just wanted to add, in terms of the discussion that was taking place now around the amendments as per the Constitutional Court judgment on the IPID bill, which was passed in the, as you've indicated, it was passed in the NCOP. But just in terms of the appointment of the executive director, it will be in line with what the Constitutional Court has indicated, because they had actually provided interim relief till Parliament enacts legislation to deal with the appointment. So my understanding is that the interim order that they've provided actually stands, so that when the appointment of the executive director is made, it would be in line with what the Constitutional Court had already suggested. Chair, so I was saying that I agree with the fact that we should have some sort of time frame around this, and also in terms of the discussion we're having, the independence of the Independent Police Investigative Directorate we should also be looking at it a lot more closely as the two committees. But Chair, in terms of the IPID amendment bill, which is in the plan, the APP of IPID, I think we should also get some kind of indication from IPID in terms of what is their plan and the time frame within which they think the bill will actually then be referred to Parliament, for Parliament to then start deliberating on matters in relation to IPID's independence. Chair, in terms of the the executive director indicated that the IPID expansion strategy was presented, and I would imagine it was presented to the PC committee previously, and he indicated that there was 230 million that was required for the expansion strategy. But if you could perhaps also give an indication in terms of the current budget, what percentage of the strategy is being addressed in relation to what has been allocated in the current budget? Chair, thanks. Those are my inputs.
Thank you very much, Honorable Faku.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thanks, Chair. First, let me also just thank the acting head of IPID. I like the way that he's firm in terms of his response to some issues and that he's hands-on in responding to issues. Just, Chair, I think also as a committee, I think we also understand the gaps that are there within the IPID. Like number one, we also acknowledge there are capacity issues that have been raised. There is the issue of the IPID head. And so I think it's important, Chair, really, that I'm happy that the Deputy Minister is here now, that really DM, we want time frames when the IPID head will be appointed. I always say that we can keep on asking these questions, but if there's no person that is responsible to respond to these issues, we'll never get straight answers. We will never think that IPID will operate the way that we expect IT to operate. So it is important that as Deputy Minister is here, that we get a proper response. When is the IPID going to be appointed? Because that is important. That is very important, Chair. On the COSA judgment, I see that the judge has granted an order to the COSA judgment. There were 3 issues that the judge requested within 2 days to command the SABS members to make sure they would not torture anyone. So I want to check from the Deputy Minister, were those orders that were granted in terms of the judgment, did SABS implement those issues that were raised in the judgment so that it does not sit and it's not implemented and then it raises other issues? I wanted to check that, but I think, Chair, the issue of the COSA judgment gives us an indication that even us as a committee, we've been pressurizing IPID to respond quickly to these cases. Remember, it's us who called them to come and respond. So one of the things that I wanted to plead with the committee, let us not pressurize IPID to close or to investigate cases. IPID must have the necessary time, all the time that is there to investigate these cases, but in a period, in a maximum period. Maybe we must not say that if this happened today, next week we want answers. No, let us give them time to investigate issues, because I think sometimes there's too much pressure on them to make sure that all these cases are closed before the lockdown is over. So I think it's important, Chair, that as we want answers, but let us give them necessary space for them to make sure that they investigate the issues that have been raised. But the COSA case, it's an eye-opener, hopefully for IPID, because this is one of the cases that IPID closed quickly. So it is important that when they do their investigation, thorough investigation is done, so that you don't have such judgments that could have been avoided. I will even go back to the issue of the Michel case. I want to plead with IPID to reopen that case, because I know they've closed it, because when you read the allegations on the newspapers, there are glaring issues that are coming out of that. So one would request that IPID to reopen other cases that has a red flag. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Before IPID comes in, when you do respond and it gets your network is a little bit bad, please do try to switch off video. So it does also affect and allow your network to be more efficient. So the Deputy Minister has he's not around, so could I get IPID and then we'll come back to the Deputy Minister? Oh, Deputy Minister has returned. Deputy Minister, could we give you an opportunity or would you like IPID to first respond?
You can
DM?
Thank you.
IPID.
Yeah, let's allow IPID to respond and then I'll come after.
Thank you. IPID?
Thanks, Chairperson, and greetings to the Honorable Deputy Minister. Chair, the questions raised, I will start with the one raised by Honorable Groenewald. I will ask my Chief Director Investigation to give the detailed definitions then. Chair, with regard to the causa matter, whether there was an instruction from Minister based on a court judgment, Chair, the answer is no. All what IPID did was to update the Minister on the position of IPID. Chair, the position of IPID with regard to the causa matter is that the resources that will be used to create this freely accessible mechanism and a special investigation should rather be utilized to address the constraints that have been raised by IPID in different platforms. This will ensure that not only the IPID operates efficiently and effectively during the national state of disaster, but even beyond. And the court agreed with that. Only what court wanted from IPID was to continue with an investigation and give the report by the 22nd, which is today. And that has been done. We have done the investigations. We have made recommendation on the involvement of Metropolis. We have received the confirmation that they've received the recommendation done by IPID, and we are looking at making a recommendation for SAPS, the commanders of the day. So, Chair, we have done that. We submitted our investigation report to the court today as required. So those were the two issues that came out from the judgment, Chair. But with regard to the establishment of the different resources, Chair, we did not agree with that because we felt strongly that IPID is a mechanism that is better placed to investigate all cases that are related to its mandate. Chair, with regard to the Honorable Whitfield, yes, he's correct. The question that he raised on case docket management, I will request one of my team members to clarify it. Indeed, it was not responded to. I will hand over to my team to respond to it, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, honorable members. I'll be responding to the question by Honorable Whitfield on why only 5 case docket inspections. At IPID, we've got a unit called the Integrity Strengthening Unit. One of their responsibilities is this very one on case docket inspections. Now, they are doing case docket inspections as a way of ensuring the integrity of our investigations. They peruse all the dockets to ensure that the investigators are really adhering to the standard operating procedures. Now, just to remind members, this is a 2-man manned unit. So why only 5? This is because of the resource constraints. Only 2 officials in the unit, and the financial constraints are such that they cannot go to all the 9 provinces. So the minimum they can do is to visit 5 provinces per year, whereby they spend about a week during each docket inspection visit. In addition, they've got other responsibilities whereby there will be reported cases of unethical conduct, of some sort that they still need to investigate, and this also take time. And the complainants need their responses in a reasonable turnaround time. So I think that clarifies why we only have 5 docket inspections per annum. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Also greeting to the Honorable Deputy Minister. The first question that I want to respond to or to clarify is with regard to the definition of COVID-19 cases. So how we came about this definition. It is understood that when the lockdown was pronounced, so obviously the law enforcement agencies were given the responsibility to enforce those laws. So in a nutshell, we are saying COVID-19 related cases are those that relates to instances where law enforcement agencies are enforcing these regulations on Disaster Management Act. There are cases, of course, like the acting ED has alluded earlier, that these cases were have occurred previously in previous months before the lockdown, and they were reported during the period of the lockdown. But we are saying there are other cases that are reported during this period of lockdown, but they are not related to the enforcement of this COVID-19 regulations. The other question that was posed was in relation to corruption cases. I was not sure as to whether Honorable Sheikman related his question was in relation to the old cases, all the other cases that were reported relating to corruption, or those that occurred during the period of the lockdown. But we do have the statistical data on the cases of corruption that occurred during the period of the lockdown, which is 19 all in all. And then those that are strictly related to the enforcement of the COVID-19 regulations are only 12. Thank you.
Chair, there's also a question raised by the chairperson of Select Committee with regard to the strategy. The question was whether how much is budgeted for strategy in the current budget allocation. The answer is nothing, Chair. The expansion strategy has always been submitted and presented to National Treasury as a separate to our budget inputs. So in terms of the allocation, current allocations, there's nothing that has been made available for the strategy, Chairperson. And with regard to the interference and our relationship to the subs, Chairperson, we do meet on monthly basis with sub members on our recommendation, and where there are challenges, particularly with regard to the implementations of the recommendations, IPID also engage with them. And there are some times where you'll find that IPID is not happy with the action that SAPS has taken in terms of the recommendation. And those engagements are taking place on monthly basis to look into the recommendations and the actions that they've been taken by SAPS members. But with regard to the challenges, Chair, that was raised by Honorable Sheikh relating to the witnesses, Chair, IPID is not aware of any challenges from the witnesses' point of view. The only challenge that was experienced, it was during the lockdown, when some of the witnesses were quarantined and some of them, IPID was unable to get hold of them due to the movement restriction. But under normal circumstances, IPID does not struggle to get hold of the investigators. They drive to the investigators to where they are, to their places. They make an arrangement. They meet with them. There is no challenge with regard to that, Chair. Chair, with regard to the follow-up on the stats, I earlier on indicated that yes, there is a follow-up on the stats related to the NPA recommendations. And Chair, I've also alluded to it earlier on that we can make available all the recommendations that IPID has made to NPA, and the responses made by NPA. That report, the detailed report, can be presented to the honorable committee members. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Can I comment?
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. You may continue.
Thank you very much. My apologies that I couldn't start with the committee, but I'm happy that I could join you while you are still in session. Thanks, Chair, and thanks to members of the Portfolio Committee, the acting head of IPID.
Just on a point of order, Chair.
Yeah.
I'm listening.
Yes, Chair. No, I wanted Chair to, because the DM is going to respond, that the issues that we raised, especially in regards to the appointment of the IPID head, that as a committee we are not happy in the manner that the executive it's moving slowly. It has been given over 2 years to appoint.
Honorable, may I interrupt? Honorable Mapatre, can we first give the DM an opportunity? If the DM has not responded to our concerns and our questions, I'll give you another round to speak. So my plea is that we first allow the Deputy Minister to speak. If there are further questions, we then give the Deputy Minister another opportunity. So if our concerns have not been raised, we'll give him another opportunity.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Equally, Chair, I will be happy if the Chair can communicate to us the summary of the committee on that specific matter, so that we know what we have decided and how we must respond to it.
Honorable Deputy Minister, I specifically did not want us to respond to it now because we are still going to discuss the COSA judgment, and it comes up in the COSA judgment as well. I know that the Minister intends or has already appealed the COSA judgment, but what the concerns have been around the COSA judgment, where it says the IPID, the amendments to the IPID Act or the IPID Bill as it is now should be attended to, and subsequent to that, the IPID head should be appointed. The committee has been proposing that we give the minister 1 month, an opportunity of 1 month to appoint the IPID head. I was just concerned that it would be repeated again when we do discuss the COSA judgment. So, Deputy Minister, I don't think you should comment on it now because it will come in the next round of questions.
No, it's helpful to know, Chair, like that you have given us a month within which we must appoint, which I don't think we must debate. That's a decision the committee has made. We must go and try and respond according to what Parliament is saying, and try to ensure that we conclude within that time frame, because it is within the committee's right to express an opinion and or take a decision that you have taken, and ours is to go back and see how we comply with the decision that you have taken. I think it helps. So I will not talk into that matter. We will go back and make sure that we try to to conclude within the period that you have outlined. And if there are challenges, we'll come back and report those challenges. And if you may allow me, Chair, I can just talk to the issues that were raised, but I don't know, because some of these issues are related to what you say you are going to discuss, which is the COSA judgment. Because the question, for instance, by Honorable Princess Faku was whether we are implementing that judgment. And if you are still going to discuss it, I don't know whether it will, I allowed to talk about what you are still going to discuss. I don't want to talk to what the head of IPID has said with regard to the questions that were raised earlier, because I am at the tail end, but I appreciate the fact that the acting head and the team were able to hold forth until now. So I think I should pause there.
Honorable Deputy Minister, if you could, and we will take another round of questions now on the COSA judgment.
So I can talk on it to it.
Would you like to speak before I take a round of questions?
I can just explain what we are doing about it, and then maybe.
And then we'll take, yes, and then we'll take questions. Thank you, GM.
Thanks a lot, Chair, and thanks to the leadership of the committee and acting head and your team. The COSA judgment essentially, Chair, was the complainant or the respondent, what they were pleading, what they sought to achieve from the court was to restate the law, what the law says. So everything about that judgment is about the law, what the law says, what the Constitution is saying, what the Police Act is saying, what the Defense Act is saying, what the Criminal Procedure Act is saying, the arrest and the torture attitude by the security forces towards the community, and what was expected, or the spirit within which lockdown regulations were promulgated, and what was expected from the community, the South African community in its totality. That is our people, the security forces themselves, and how they should collaborate in implementing that. So that is what that judgment was saying. And as a consequence of that, they arrived at decisions that, or at orders that the judge made, which then said the security forces must do certain things in response to that, which you then find on, because the judgment starts with, I think I can call it Section 3 and Section 4, Section 5, up to Section 6 in terms of the things that we need to do. And with regard to those issues, we have complied with what we were supposed to do since judgment was made last week. For instance, there are issues that we are supposed to do today, which has to do with the code of conduct and the guidelines and how people must enforce the lockdown and the use of force, enforcing the social distance and the restriction of movement and other activities. That these issues were supposed to be done in 5 days from the judgment, which is today, the 22nd. The Minister of Police and the Minister of Defense must sign what they call the Minister to lodge affidavit with regard to the sections as outlined above, which are to do with the code of conduct by the police and the army. which must be lodged within 12 by 12 midnight today. As I speak to you now, the joint affidavit will be signed. One office has already signed, and it is being sent to the other office of the defense for signature, after which it will be published and also sent to the court. And all the days, what we have done from the side of the South African police, we have outlined what the judgment said with regard to 3.1, which is supposed to happen today, the 22nd, up to 3.5, which happened in different days. Already there is what was, for instance, command members to comply with prohibition on torture prescripts, which the National Commissioner has attended to already, which should have taken place on the 19th. And that there are those that were supposed to happen within 5 days, which I've already mentioned, which is 3.1 of the judgment. I don't know whether members have copies of the judgment. If they don't, my apologies to talk to numbers that they don't understand. And then there is 3.3, 3.4, 4.1, 4.2, up to 4.3, and 5.1 up to 5.2, which must happen by today. They are contained in the code of conduct that I'm saying currently is en route to be signed by the Minister of Defense, because the Minister of Police has already attached his signature towards that. And then there are those that must happen by the 26th of May, and then which is lodging this with the court, and is the conclusion of the investigation of the matter by the South African Defence Force, which must be done by the 4th of June. Now, with regard to that aspect, you remember that there is what they call section 6 of the judgment, which talks to, let me just quickly go to it, Chair, which talks to what the first and the fourth respondent must do, which is the minister and the minister, both ministers of police and defense. They must ensure that the internal investigations into the incident listed below are completed and the reports are finished to this court on or before the 4th of June 2020. And these are 6.1.1, the treatment of Mr. Collins Khosa. That one, we agree that it must be done by the 4th of June. What is being appealed, I think it's Honorable Visitor Blanc, who was saying that we are appealing the judgment. What we are appealing is a section in the judgment, which is section 6.1.2 of section 6, which talks about what we are supposed to do. And in that section, there is section 6.1, which says that the respondent shall, 6.1 says, the respondent shall ensure that the internal investigations into the incidents listed below are completed and reports are finished to this court on or before the 4th of June 2020. And which is listed below is the following, is 6.1.1, which is the treatment of Mr. Collins Khosa. On this one, we are not appealing. We are complying with this one. But we are then appealing 6.1.2, which says, I will read it in full. The first and fourth respondents shall ensure that the internal investigations into the incidents listed below are completed and the reports are furnished to this court on or before 4 June 2020. And it says, it goes further to say, 6.1.2, the treatment of any person whose rights may have been infringed during the state of disaster at the hands of members of the South African National Defence Force, the South African Police Services, and or any member of the Metro Police Department. That is the section that we are appealing. I will not go into the merits and demerits of that because that is a subject that will be argued in court as to the merits and demerits of it, why, and all those things. But the 6.1.1, we are not we are complying with that, and the rest of the judgment we are complying with it. I think I can stop there, Chair, and then when there are questions, one can comment. I must say before maybe I stop, Chair, indicate that the judgment, like I said, it is restating the law. It means that we have got laws, we have got code of conduct, we have all these things. But on this specific day, members of the security forces conducted themselves in a manner that was not in line. Hence, life was lost and there were conduct that were unfortunate from the part of the security forces. So they are saying, follow your laws, follow your code of conduct, do as you said you are going to do. That is the judgment. That's why the code of conduct that the two ministers are signing for publication in the newspapers, in TV, in community radio stations, in WhatsApp platforms, in Twitter, in Facebook, it doesn't suggest that there were no codes of conduct that are there that are guiding both the army and the police and the Metro Police in doing their work. They were there. It's just that they had to remind us that go and work in accordance with the prescripts that are there in terms of the law. I think that should suffice, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Whitfield, and then Honourable Groenewald. Thank you, Deputy Minister. Deputy Minister, can you just mute your mic, please?
Yes.
Honourable Whitfield, and then Honourable Groenewald.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I just want to perhaps clarify or reiterate my point I made earlier, and it's useful the Deputy Minister is here, and thank you to the Deputy Minister for his inputs. My point was relating to the committee's responsibility with respect to the appointment of the head of IPID, and that we have an opportunity, Chair, considering the implications of the McBride judgment relating to the removal of the IPID head and the principle of independence. I believe the committee has an opportunity to rectify the same section in the Act that deals with the appointment of the IPID head to ensure that the principle of independence is upheld. There are a lot of views on this matter, Chair, and I would like clarity from you whether this committee has taken a decision to give the executive a month to appoint an IPID head. I believe that if the committee is going to give the executive the powers to appoint the IPID head, which exist in the Act, we would not be doing our work as Parliament to create legislation or to write legislation that protects the independence of IPID. And I want the Deputy Minister to respond to that. to give us an indication, because he appears to say that the committee has now given an instruction to the executive to appoint a head of IPID within a month. So if you can clarify that, Chair, and also perhaps express your views on the role of the committee in amending the legislation further to protect the independence of IPID as it relates to the appointment of the IPID head. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Before you come, Honorable Groenewald.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I want to say to the Honourable Deputy Minister, I hear what he says about the appeal. I've looked at the points. It doesn't make sense because it's investigations. I suppose it's a time constraint that they cannot comply to the 4th of June. But he says it's a beauty case, he cannot comment on that. Now, firstly, Chairperson, before I ask my question to the Deputy Minister, I'm still waiting for the definition of a COVID-19 operation. I heard that I'm going to get a definition, but I didn't receive it up to now. The other thing I want to ask the Honourable Minister, Chair, is I've referred to it earlier. I don't know whether he was part of the meeting yet. I've asked IPID whether they were involved in the establishment of a mechanism where the public can go and lay their complaints. Now, I want to ask the Deputy Minister, has such an instrument been formulated and is that mechanism established? Because it also has to be established today. It has to be publicized all in the media so that everybody knows where they can lay their complaints. That's my first one. The second one, Chair, I want to ask the Honourable Deputy Minister. I've looked at the regulations, or let's call it the guidelines, issued now to the police members as far as when it comes to the treatment of the public as far as torture and all that sort of things are concerned. And I see in 6.2 where he refers to arrest and use of force. Then, and by the way, that has been approved by the Commissioner of Police on the 19th. Was it the 19th? Let me just check that quickly. I think it was the 19th of May. That's correct. It has been approved. It says, and it puts out the guidelines very clearly. And it says, as a general rule, the object of an arrest is to secure the attendance of a person, etc. And it says a member may under no circumstances arrest a person in order to punish, scare, or harass such person, or to teach him or her a lesson. Now, firstly, Chairperson, we see now on social media a video going viral. A woman that has been arrested this morning in Strand in the Western Cape. It was before 8. She was walking, she's doing her exercise, and she was brutally, and I say brutally, arrested by the police. That was this morning. Now, I want to ask the Deputy Minister, how are they going to ensure that when a member of the public gets arrested, that the police member, or in this case it's also going, well, this is specific, the police and then the Metro Police, because they fall under the police, that the arrest is not to punish, to scare or harass a person, because what we've seen on the social media this today is nothing else but exactly that. How are they going to deal with that to ensure that the people don't do that? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Faku.
Ter Blanche also.
Yes, Honourable Ter Blanche and then Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Chairperson. First, let me welcome the response from the Deputy Minister. One must appreciate that the department accepts the judgment. So, and I appreciate that DM don't want to divulge more on their appeal. So let us appreciate that, Chair. Chair, I just wanted to plead with the committee. I understand that there's an urgency of us appointing an IPID head, but I think if we're saying that that must be done within a month, maybe the person is employed somewhere else, the person must give a 1 month notice or whatever. I don't know. I'm just saying maybe a period of 3 months would be reasonable than to just say a month because we know that won't happen. I just wanted to raise that point, Chairperson, so that we don't. I think the DM was just making a proposal. He was not saying that the committee has given 1 month. So I would want to plead with the committee that we give the department at least 3 months to appoint the IP head. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Tablanche, and then Shakima.
Chairperson, thank you. Chairperson, I also just wanted to check. I cannot recall that this committee took a decision already on the appointment, the 1 month that you referred to. I just want to check on that. Chairperson, and then secondly, I want to strongly support my colleague, the Honourable Whitfield, that we must really seriously consider amending, the Act to bring it in line now for once and for all, that we're going to end up with a proper piece of legislation that will ensure that everything will be dealt with in a proper way. Chairperson, and then lastly, while we have the Deputy Minister with us, Chairperson, this department is obviously seriously underfunded. And I just want to know from the Deputy Minister what has been done in the interim, or, this is going on for a very long time, and apparently we just don't get around this issue. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, the 1 month was proposed. My apologies. It was not yet a decision. It was just a proposal. So we will discuss it. So you are at liberty to give input on it. I'll take Honourable Shakima.
Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you to the Deputy Minister. I'm a little bit concerned, Chair. I hope the Deputy IPID is not threatened by the Deputy Minister because they didn't respond to some of my questions. I hope they are not gagged. But one of it was...
Honourable Shakima, please withdraw.
Just a sec. I withdraw, Chair. Chair, I asked whether there's been any undue influence from any senior management in their investigation into the conduct of South African Police Service officers in the matters that they are investigating thus far. And that's what led me to ask whether there's been any delay, and not just with COVID-19, in any of the matters that they're investigating in SAPS members over a period of time in getting cooperation from others, because we know there's a lot of collusion going on between officers and corruption, and one protects the other. So I wanted to know if that's not making work difficult, particularly for IPID to conclude on some of the investigations. Now, and I spoke about the issue of torture and brutality and things. And my question to IPID was, in all the investigations...
There's no 5 here.
In all the investigation they're doing in this particular field of brutality and torture.
Sorry, Honourable Tablanche, please switch off your microphone. We don't want to hear your discussions with your wife.
Yeah, so in terms of the torture and brutality, that was, and it's also linked to the Khoza case. My question was, in the cases that you're identifying, what did you identify or establish is some of the root causes? And I even broke it down to want to know, do you think that there's not enough training, ongoing training, workshopping for officers to know how to basically conduct themselves? So if you could, just comment on that and tell us. Chair, on the issue of the appointment of the IPID head, I think it's unreasonable to expect, given the current circumstances, to expect SAPS to go and appoint an IPID head in 30 days. And then also we need to decide whether we want an IPID head to be appointed soon, or we should look at trying to amending the Act first. But if we're going to go the route of appointing the head, which I think is urgent, I think at least a minimum of 3 months, and I think we're going to be needed to be guided by the current situation in the country, particularly with the COVID-19. That will be my submission for now, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Koia, and then Mofoke.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I just wanted to make a comment on the 1 month for the appointment of the IPID head. It's good that you have clarified it, because I just wanted to say to the minister, to the Honorable Minister, that given that they have already accepted and allocated themselves that 1 month, what we need to ensure is that whatever they are doing, they should make sure that the process is thorough. They are able to recruit the best person that would be suitable for that. So it shouldn't be an issue of speeding up the process and regretting after the appointment when we find out that we have recruited someone who might be in possession of qualifications, but who is unable or who is not up to the task. Because what is important is that we should recruit someone who is up to the task, someone who will be able to carry out the work and drive the programs of the IPID. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mofoking, and then Faku.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for the briefing from the DM. I think I agree with their appeal and the processes. Chair, on the issue of a DA suggesting that we should amend the Act, it's just going to take us long to prolong the process. I would like to suggest that we go on what was proposed by Honorable Faku, to say that we must give them 3 months. And further, we should make sure that the acting head, that is Mr. Steady, to remain in office until that time. We don't want to see people being chopped and changed now and then. Then that will actually make us to be able to conclude on the process. I think that will be the process that will satisfy us. Chair, we are not in this committee alone. We are sent by organizations. If we want to amend an act, some of us must go and consult. It's not an overnight thing of something that is decided by 2 people. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Faku.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think Honorable Mufugeng has just covered me on the point that I wanted to raise. I just forgot to mention it earlier on when I was talking, to say that it can't be in this meeting that we take such a decision to amend the IPID head. We understand that we believe also that the independence of IPID, but in this meeting we can't take such decisions. I think we must allow ourselves to look into the matter before we take decisions. But on the 3 months, we stand to say that IPID must be appointed within 3 months. But in terms of us as a committee to say that the committee must now appoint the IPID head, no, I don't agree with that. We need to be given time so that we study this process and understand it thoroughly. I think Honorable Mufugeng will cover me on that part. Thanks, Chair.
Honorable Shembeni.
Thank you, Chairperson. All that I wanted to say to the, thank you, Deputy Minister, your presence. All what I wanted to say is that we request that justice be done to the South Africans when the appointment is being done of the IPID head. Because now, according to the look of things, something is not right there. This thing is being done deliberately. That we cannot have such a long period where we don't have a leader in such an important organization that looks after the corruption and wrongdoings by the police in South Africa. Now, as I'm saying, we don't have a head. It's difficult to get the right budget. It's difficult to have the right capacity of the police to do the investigation. So we must have the right person being appointed. And I'm looking also at the term of office that the person must occupy this office, the executive director. We must know that the term of office of the executive director, it's from when to when. Now, if we pass all these years without having an executive director, it's going to give us a hard time. Let's get the right people in the right place and forget about politics there. We must not protect people. We must get the right person to do the right job for us there. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Zandamela, and then Honorable Sheikh.
No, thanks.
Honorable Chair.
Yes.
Honorable Mapatswe, you noted?
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
No, thanks, Chair. There was a suggestion earlier on that the committee must make sure, or at least get a time frame between now, like as in from today, from the Deputy Minister. When are they going to appoint the director in that department? So I didn't hear the response from the Minister, but this was suggested here by all the members in this committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sheikh, and then Honorable Mapatswe.
Chairperson, can you note me?
You all noted, Honorable Mola.
Thank you.
Honorable Mola, you on the list.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I just want to also raise sentiments that were raised earlier, especially around giving the department 3 months to appoint the executive director, which I agree is a reasonable time. But Chair, I think in terms of the amendments to the bill, there's already a proposed amendment to the bill that the department has on their APP. And I think maybe the Deputy Minister can perhaps also give us some kind of direction in terms of when the department is proposing that bill would then enter into a parliamentary process. I raised that question earlier, but it wasn't responded to. So if we can get an indication to that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mapatswe, and then Mola.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and welcome, DM. And I would want Chair to appreciate that the ministry has managed to implement the court judgment, even though they are going to appeal others. But at least they have implemented most of the judgment by the judge. I just wanted to raise that. The second one is that of the legislation, which everybody has covered me that we can't do that. We will do it later. I would also want to second or support Honorable Jackie Mofuke that you can't have stability in a department. 2 months this person is acting, he is removed when he's still busy with another case, and the subordinates under him also get confused. There's a new acting again who comes in, he comes with his own way of working. So if we keep on changing the acting, it affects the performance of the IPID. It will not perform to its maximum. So if we really, as a committee, want that IPID, it must have teeth, it must bite. The stability first, it must be at the head. So that is why we're saying the issue of the IPID, we're raising it because it is not 6 months that the department was given, it's 2 years that they have not been the head of IPD. I'm subject to correction, but I think it's 2 years. So the 3 months that members are proposing, I agree with it that let's give the department 3 months, and they will come back to us and report to us in the next portfolio committee with our proposal. Really, Chair, if we don't have the head at the IPID, we are going to get these reports that sometimes we will say, no, let them go back. And that's not what we want as this committee. We have been working very well with the subs because they've been doing very well. So where they don't do right, it's our duty as the portfolio committee to do our oversight on the executive. So we've done well, except this one that really lack of support, lack of investigators, lack of budget. So there are many things. So if you have the head, I think you will have stability in the department. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mola.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I remember I asked the minister this question: when is he going to appoint the IPID head? He said they did advertise the post, but they didn't get the right person. I want to know, Chairperson, if did they re-advertise the post? Because now when we are saying we're giving them 3 months, we are on lockdown now. So I want to know, how are they going to do it? Was this post re-advertised or not? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Mola. Before the Deputy Minister responds, Honorable members, the Act, if we were to comply with the Act, the time frame stipulated by the Act brought to a close the appointment or the period for the appointment of the IPID as to the end of February. So if you remember correctly, we were supposed to appoint the head by the end of February. The minister came back and asked for an extension and indicated that they were going to headhunt. So we already, since February, we are already 3 months down the line, and we shouldn't think that we're only giving IPID an extension of 1 month. Since February, we've already given them 3 months extension. Prior to that, they had advertised, they had re-advertised, they had said they're going to headhunt. So this is a long process. I'm asking members to follow this process very meticulously. And yes, I agree that we could give the department another 3 months to appoint, but let this really be the last 3 months. Deputy Minister, the deadline legally, the deadline for the appointment of the IPID was the end of February. Thank you very much. Deputy Minister, you can respond.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chair, and thanks to members, and say that we appreciate the fact that you have always been considerate in dealing with, interacting with the department, and I think that is the spirit that we must maintain. We take seriously the advices that you are giving, and we believe if we can take a leaf from this interaction, we can do better when we improve our work as a police department. And I'm quite certain I have said this to the acting head and before Datesinna and to Sitsedi, that IPID is one institution that if we can all join hands to make it do its work effectively, once it becomes effective, it will contribute towards ensuring that police conduct themselves in a manner that is not wanting. And as a consequence of that, IPID will cease to exist because it will have done its work excellently. It exists because of the problem that we have within the space of police, and it is there to ensure that police conduct themselves professionally. And I think it's a task that we will be able to achieve working together with the committee. I think the issue that maybe it might not be appropriate for one to talk to is the question that was raised by Honorable Wickfield, and I think members, as they talked, they came to a proposal which is very firm, that within 3 months we must have concluded the process. And I think the committee has been reasonable with us. I will take the sentiments back to the department and interact with the minister on this matter to ensure that we really bring finality to the matter. I fully agree with you that this matter should have been concluded. It has taken a very, very long time to conclude, which is completely unacceptable. And the sooner we settle it, the better. Even the colleagues from IPID, they will agree with me that to have acting people, it's not appropriate. It even creates an environment which is not good. You know, the Honorable Mr. Senna was acting, he's the CFO, now he has gone back, now somebody come back who was reporting to him, now he must report to that person. It's a situation that is not ideal, it's problematic, and I think the sooner we deal with it, the better. The issue of the mechanisms of how people report the problems, we are from a forum where we were interacting before I came here, where we communicated with the public in terms of how they must report cases. And we have publicized numbers because we do have numbers that operate to help the public to report cases to the South African police. And these numbers have been made public. There is the SAPS crime stop number, the 086 number. There is also a tip-off that can be done via an app that we have, which we call My SAPS app. There are contact numbers for the GBV Command Center, which is an 0800 ending with 428. There's a Childline toll-free number. There is a lifeline number. There is human trafficking hotline. There is national services complaints call centers that are there, including our complaints nodal point at saps.gov.za, which is an email through which people can communicate cases that have to do with the police. The independent directorate also have programs where they interact with communities to ensure that people know what to do. And I must say that most of the cases that IPID they are dealing with, some of them came to the attention which were raised by the public, including the cases that we are dealing with currently, including the COSA case. it is because the public raised the matter. I'm not saying that all the cases of misconduct are raised with us, but we rely on members, like, for example, Honorable Tereblant says that he has witnessed conduct of an arrest of a person. I think it's either today or a day before today. Such occurrences, when we don't see them and the Honorable Tereblant sees them, we will be happy if we are alerted to such incidences. And we have said in one of the meetings that we came there with the senior management of the South African Police, that each member of the committee, for instance, if they encounter a problem or they see somebody conducting themselves in a manner that is not appropriate, they should feel free to communicate with either the minister or the deputy minister or the national commissioner. And of course, we said they must have contact of provincial commissioners in the provinces where they come from, and also be able to communicate either with district commissioners or station commissioners in their constituencies. And where there are difficulties, these matters should be raised to us as and when we meet with you, like today in this meeting. Members must be able to say, we have encountered the following in our work. Sorry, when I move away from that screen is because I realize it's getting darker where I'm seated, and it might be difficult for colleagues to see where we talk from because it's going to be dark and ultimately we might not see each other. So the forums and the platforms that we have created as the subs is the ones that I've outlined here. And I think through you, Chair, we will ask that we provide the committee with this information so that members can, at their disposal, know who to contact wherever they are when they have difficulties. But we have also said that we must have a directory of contact details of the leadership of the South African Police, right from the minister up to a station commander, so that people can easily, without difficulty, know who to contact when they encounter a problem in their areas of work, or as they go about their daily errands in their respective communities. The issue of how will we ensure that police don't conduct themselves in a manner that is not appropriate. Any police officer or any member of the security forces, like the judgment have said, there must be a joint proclamation by both the Minister of Defense and the South African police officer, is to communicate with all law enforcement officers that they are expected to conduct themselves in a humanely manner. Any member of the security forces who conduct themselves in a manner that is not appropriate, is not keeping with the spirit of the Constitution, or they violate the Bill of Rights of South Africans, those individuals will be dealt with decisively by the authorities, and including the institutions that we have put in place to deal with issues like this. For instance, IPID is to act on police who violate human rights of South Africans. So through that, of course, we know that punishment is not a way of correcting. People must be trained in such a manner that when you pass from the police training or the army training or the metro police training, you know how you must conduct yourself. You don't need to have a supervisor who must from time to time look at how you are conducting yourself. So there will be a combination of approaches that we will adopt in ensuring that our police officers conduct themselves in a manner that is appropriate. Yes, it has not been easy. 25 years into democracy, we experience what we have experienced with the case of Khosa, where a citizen get killed or die because of what the security forces have done. We were not supposed, our people are not supposed to experience things like this today, but we still encounter such things given where we come from. And we don't want to shift the blame and say this is because of apartheid and all those things. We are here, we must contribute towards ensuring that the South African police become a pride of all South Africans. The issue of, I think there's an issue that has been raised by the chair, the co-chair, with regard to when are we bringing the IPID Amendment Act. From the plans that are there, we will only be able to present that the first quarter of 2021. That is when we will be able to do that. I think mainly members, what you have given us, the 3 months period, I think it's something that we really appreciate and will try and respond to that. I think the other questions, maybe I will ask Sitedi, the acting director, to respond to the issue of Honorable Imam around the undue influences and whether they are undue influences or not. I think the head hunting process, if I may conclude, Chair, by talking to that, is that you head hunt, and after you have head hunted, you are not head hunting one person to appoint. The process is to head hunt and interview and recommend on the basis of the then appoint on the basis of the recommendation that will come from the panel, because it should still go through a panel. It's not a situation where we'll go to a person and say, yeah, we think you can be IPID, and take that person and come and recommend that person to the committee. We are going to headhunt and get these people interviewed. And that process was already started. It's just that when COVID came, it stalled everything. We couldn't do anything because you still need to interview these people, and that was not allowed under the regulations. And I think as we go into level 3 and the other levels, we will be able to conduct this. But I think from what we have been given and the experiences of virtual interaction must also come into play, because, for instance, when we adjourned the parliament, I never imagined that we will come and have committee meetings like we are doing now. And we are also planning to go to parliament to pass the money bill through the methods that have been put. It means that we can sit in a panel and interview a person using virtual methods, which I think is an option that we should consider as we deal with this specific matter in order to respond to the 3 months. Because if we don't do that, we might not be able to come back to you in 3 months and report. So we'll look into that, but it will be a thorough process. I must assure members that will be thorough, and we'll make sure that a candidate that we bring before you, it's a recommendation that you should not find difficulties in accepting from whatever pool that we will have put on your table for consideration. And I think the challenges that are there in IPID as we resolve the issue of the head will also be issues that will resolve themselves going forward. IPID was not a creation of a mistake. It was a creation because it was necessary for us to have IPID so that we can assist the professionalization of the South African police through instruments like this, like many other instruments that we created in a democratic dispensation to assist us to creating an ideal government that our forebears dreamed of South Africa to be. And I think even in this case, the idea behind it was for us to create an institution with the capacity to assist the police, not to create an institution that does not have the capacity. It just become a lapdog of the police department. It must be independent, it must be robust, it must help us to do our work effectively. And for that, I think I speak also on behalf of the minister that we must have a vibrant and viable IPID that can assist us to create the environment that will be ideal for police to do their work and South Africans can indeed feel safe in their own country. Through your chair, if you may allow, we allow the acting head Sitsedi to talk to the questions that Honorable Imam raised and others that might be affecting them, which I didn't talk to. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, DM. You may continue, IPID. I have noted more hands, but IPID. IPID.
Chair, you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
thank you.
You can continue.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. I was saying, let me add to the response that was provided by the DM on the question that was raised by the Honorable Chair of the Selection Committee related to amendment of bill. Chair, there's a progress that has been made in that regard. We met with Secretariat, as I've indicated, that this is a dual process between IPID and the Civilian Secretariat. We met with Secretariat on the 24th to look at 24th of March 2020 to look at the inputs that were made by the Honorable Minister. We have since considered that. Once we have finalized that, we'll then submit to the JCPS cluster for their inputs. And once they've done that, then the bill will be then submitted for consideration by honorable members. Chair, with regard to the questions that were raised by Honorable Sheikh Imam, Chair, the undue influence. Chair, since I started acting as an acting head, Chair, I've met with this team in IPID and I've requested that we execute our mandate without fear or favor. Chair, even myself, I can hardly get involved on the investigation. The investigation is done mainly in the provinces, overseen by the provincial heads. They make the recommendations to the subs as well as to the NPA. So, Chair,
I have a problem with your sound, or is it me? I'm not sure if it's my network.
No, we can't hear him, all of us.
We've lost you.
We can't hear him.
In the meantime, could I ask Honorable Mofokeng, Koya, and Faku, I had your hands.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thanks for the report from DM. I'm sure DM, you'll realize that immediately when you were going on and explaining, I saw a lot of hands coming up. And then I'm sure you'll realize that some of these things can be on COVID-19, but they will remain with us. I want to raise a question on the issue of the toll-free numbers that you said. They will be from the police, they'll be from this and all the sectors until to the GBV, whatever steering committee. Then the question will be, where do they go? Who does what? Because I want to suggest to you, DM, that we need to know that if I phone the police or I phone all the sectors that you are saying, who are behind? Who are the people that are receiving these calls? Because the report of saying that so many women or so many people reported the GBV matters. I asked the question to say, and then what else? What happened after that? How many cases were open? How many cases are ready to go to court? And many other things. Then the people that are actually even behind that are on the toll-free numbers, are they professional enough? Are they actually counselors? Can they come a person who's in a state? Because taking a phone when you are attacked or something is happening, it's something else. And I wish that we can give ourselves time into looking at this matter going forward. For now, I really don't know that after that, what is going to happen. The next question will be, are these police officers that we see mistakes after mistakes, case after case, causes and all that, that even yesterday there was a Cape Town mishandling of a woman, are they trained on conflict resolution? Because, you know, this time of COVID-19 made me to think to say, in the training of the police officers, is conflict resolution part of the thing? Then it goes further to say, these police officers are human beings. And as they are human beings, there is debriefing that is happening when they work. But during this time, do we have a plan on how do they go on a debriefing? DM, you know very well that even all of us, lockdown is new, it makes us run crazy at some stage. And I'm wishing that to understand that with them, what are we doing? Because we can blame them, but you might find that they are having their own challenges. And I'm wishing that we should not actually just do things for the sake of a toll-free number will help and all that. Let us look at also the department, look at itself to say best practices. I'll give an example of one best practice that I've seen, and we need to do that because we need to look at that because I know DM was still on checking with best practices. In US, when you report case of rape now, already it's on the system and it's handled by the next person. If a person needs to go to a surgeon, then the person will be ready. If the next person should be going to the hospital, all of them, there's a string and is 247. And all those cases are actually known in one day. Can't we do such a thing because we keep on having this call to this and this is, I am a woman, I deal with many women and that are not happy about these toll-free numbers. And at the moment, I appreciate every effort that everybody is trying to do to say my department will bring this and this. But on the ground, working with women, it's sad. It's very sad. Thank you very much, DM. I appreciate your time, your report, but we need to sit on what next after this calls.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kloya and then Faku. This is the last round of questions I'm taking. Honorable Sheikh Imam has indicated that he has to leave. He is part of distributing food to vulnerable communities in Mitchell's Plain. And then I've also noted Honorable Groenewald. This is the last round of questions. Kloya?
No, thank you very much, Chair.
Honorable Kloya, can you switch off your Honorable Kloya, can you switch off your video because we can't hear you properly?
I was saying, Chair, did you note me, Chair? I raised my hand.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Yes, you noted.
Can I be allowed to speak, please? Thank you very much, Chair. I was saying, Chair, one, thanks to Comrade for reading my mind. Because the issues that I want to raise, in fact, I will just be amplifying what she is saying now, because those were the issues that I had in mind. One, I ended the relationship between the IPID and the management of SAPS.
Honorable Korea, we are
In
unable to hear
order
you.
for them to be able to communicate what
We
their
unable.
expectations as PDE are.
My apologies,
Can you
Honorable
hear me now?
Korea. No,
Can you hear me now?
your line is very bad.
You still can't hear me.
Deputy
So
Minister,
you still cannot hear me.
you much clear. You're not very clear, but continue. Please continue.
Okay, thanks, Chair. No, okay, can you hear me now? Right. No, I was saying, Chair, that in fact, Comrade Jackie read my mind, because one, I wanted to raise the issue of the relationship between IP and the management of SAPS in terms of they also being able to communicate their expectations of the behavior of the police, so that we are proactive and prevent some of the things from happening, instead of being reactive in terms of the issues that have happened. That's the first issue that I wanted to raise. It goes to SAPS. Is that I think they need to do more in relation employee. Where there are psychologists employed in the S, there are social workers employed in the, but I'm not getting a sense as to whether they are doing their work in terms of training the police mentally to be ready for the challenges out there. Because I know at times police react to provocation, but do we have measures in place to ensure that the police do not react to provocation with anger, but they have a way that is manageable. So the issue of anger, the issue of conflict management or conflict resolution, as Comrade Jackie has raised, those are very important. Can be that on a weekly basis, a report that come in terms of the work by the police.
Thank you very much, Honorable.
You are gone now, Chair.
Yeah, we've lost Honorable Korea. Can we take Faku and then Mapatswe, and I also have Groenewald? Faku?
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Chair. Chairperson, let me start on the issue that was responded to by the acting head of the IPID, the one about the journalist. I wanted to say I did hear his response, but I would further request that as the acting head, I believe that he appointed people to go and look at this guy and they can't find him. But what is important, we know that this person has a place of employment. I think it is important as the IP head to also go there and look for the journalist, because for me, it's like the person is scared of something if the police can't find him. So it is important that there's a written response that is written to this person so that it's not seems that the IPID is not responding to issues. So it's important on this issue. On the issue that Honorable Terry Blanche has raised, that as the DA, they are receiving cases of police torture. I'm worried, why are these cases going to the DA? Are these cases not to be sent maybe to an individual member of parliament, or so that the member of parliament can maybe send to the minister or what? I believe, for me, if it's sent to a political party, I am not comfortable with that. But if it's sent to a member, maybe whoever wants to report cases and there are no responses, then we understand as of members of parliament the protocol that we need to follow, but it can't be sent to the DA. There must not be interference from any political parties when it comes to the IPID. As a committee, we are firm to say that IPID must be independent. And I also appreciate when Deputy Minister raises the issue to say that we must make sure that the police upheld the constitution of this country, especially as we're coming from the past, as we're in the new dispensation. So that point I appreciate, because people of this country must feel free. When they see the police, they must feel protected. People must not run away from the police, but also we must not paint all police in a brush to say that they are not doing good. Some police are doing great work, and the few are doing wrong things, and hence it is important for us not to protect them. I would re-emphasize, Chair, the point that I've raised about the case of Michels, that the acting IPID head did not respond to this case. I understand that that case was closed. I would want to urge them to look into that matter again before that matter is taken into court again. But Chair, let us appreciate the response from the Deputy Minister. I think, on this issue of what...
Honorable Faku, please, we have 10 minutes left, and I still have 2 members.
No, Chair, it's fine, but I wanted just to support what Honorable Mufukeng was saying regarding to gender-based violence. Yes, the minister has reported that there's a decrease of gender-based violence, but I think we need to improve on how people can be able to communicate and report these cases so that really the numbers can really drop. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Honorable Mapatswe and then Groenewald, and then that's it.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I want
Don't
to...
forget, Honorable Shembeni, Chairperson, just got the last thing.
Honorable Shembeni, you the last. Mapatswe?
I just want to join Honorable Faku, Chair. I was also going to raise it that we have agreed when we started as a committee that also going to raise it that we have agreed when we started as a committee that also going to raise it that
Honorable Mapatswe, we are unable to hear you.
No, there's an echo. I don't know where
there's an echo. Could you please mute your mics so that we can hear Honorable Mapatswe? Could you all mute your mics, please? It's very disturbing. Honorable Mapatswe?
Yes, can you hear me now, Chair? Yes. I can see that DM can hear me. I'm saying, can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, we can hear you, yes.
Okay. No, I was saying, Chair, just in brief, that I was worried the way that the DA is saying they are receiving complaints and people, they report cases to the DA. I said, when we started as a committee, we said we don't want to politicize crime. This portfolio committee is very important. So let us not start by bringing...
Can I respond to that, please?
There's no point of order here, Chair. I'm still...
Honorable Groenewald, you are going to speak after Mapatswe. So let Mapatswe finish and then you can speak.
Chairperson, it's Ter Blanche. I just want to explain what is happening.
No, Honorable Ter Blanche, please. Groenewald is after Honorable Ter Blanche. You have not been given. Honorable Ter Blanche, you are not given a chance to speak. Honorable Mapatre, please finish.
Yeah, you see, Chair, that's the problem, because now we get interrupted when we raise issues that are correct, that we should not politicize the portfolio committee.
Let me interrupt you. You attack us.
You are not on the floor, please. We are not politicizing this portfolio committee. We must do our oversight work. Lastly, Chair, is that we have not, as a committee, when we get reports that police men or women are killed, as a committee, we have not yet been vocal about condemning that. We have interrogated the SAPs, we have interrogated all the departments of SAPs. But when policemen and women are killed, we don't really stand up strongly and condemn the killing of our policemen and women. So I would like the portfolio committee to really, when such things happen, that we stand behind the police and criticize and condemn and assist in arresting those criminals. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Ter Blanche, Groenewald, and then Shembeni. Then I'm done. Sorry, Honorable Groenewald, could I get Ter Blanche?
Yes, but I was raising my hand, just I want to say something.
Chairperson, thank you for the opportunity. I didn't want to interrupt or whatever. I just wanted to explain. People are phoning us. We are not canvassing people to phone us. And the main reason why they're phoning us, they don't get, if they phone the police, there's no response, and then people phone us automatically. We don't cater for that or promote that. So that is just what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Groenewald, Shembeni, and then Motsamai.
Thank you, Chair. Well, we've run out of time, Chairperson, so I just wanted to say to the Deputy Minister, he said that we must contact them. Now, I want to say there's only one, and I say only one person, that if I contact him, doesn't matter what time of the day or night, he will answer his phone and he will come back to me, and that's the Commissioner, General Sitole. From the others, I phone, they don't answer. If you go to someone else, then they say they don't know. So my appeal to the Deputy Minister, we must also practice what we preach. So please tell the people that if their telephone numbers are available, we want to solve problems, that they answer their phones and that they can come back to us. They should follow the example set by the National Commission. Thank you.
I agree with you, General Groenewald, but the Minister and the Deputy Minister are also very good at responding to calls. Honorable Shembeni and then Motsamai.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Minister. I hear a lot of noise there in the background. Can you hear me, sir?
We can hear you.
Yes, thank you very much. I wanted to explain what does a police officer entails. When we talk about police officers, people must know what we are talking about. Remember that to be a policeman, as far as I know, it's a calling. But for now, it seems as if people are just seeking employment, and then we're trying to close a gap of youth unemployment. That is a difficult task to become a police officer, and these people need a lot of support from us. Now, I wanted to check from the committee, have we ever thought of visiting those police colleges as to see what is happening there and ask questions? Have we ever thought of visiting the detective colleges, and when they're doing these courses, what is being done there, so that we find out exactly. When we go out, you know exactly when you meet a police officer what is expected of him. Not what we are thinking. A police officer, to become a police officer is a difficult job. Now we are in lockdown. People are expected to stay indoors, but they cannot. They expect a police officer to shout them, run after them, to go and stay inside their houses. Now, it's a very, very, very difficult job. I've heard Honorable parts of what he has said. It's very, very painful. These people are being killed every day, but we're doing nothing, saying nothing out of that. Now, thank you very much. I think we must, as a committee, start by attending and seeing what is happening in the police colleges. Who are these people at these police colleges? Are they supposed to be there or not? Or we're just closing the gap of unemployment? Thank you.
Honorable members, we have 3 minutes left. The more you speak, the less time you have for responses. So now I'm going to give Motsamai a chance, and then please, you only have 5 minutes left for responses. Motsamai?
Oh, thank you, Chairperson. I'm very happy for the work of the police. But when you go to the place like where I am, I'm in Gauteng, in Katlehong, and when you get there, you will find when you call the police to come and disturb or people who are playing soccer, who are playing dice, well, it's lockdown. The police, they don't respond. And people around, they will simply say, here we are selling vegetables and so on, groceries. But the people are playing dice here within us. Can you call the police to come and assist us? And when the police come, we, especially members of the parliament, they don't recognizing us as members of the parliament. Even you show them that I'm a member of parliament, I'm ordering you to remove the people from this side. Or must I call the your station commander or whatsoever? The police, they will just drive the car and leave. There is no lockdown in Katlehong. There was no lockdown in Katlehong. So must the police show
Honorable members,
that they awake? I thank you.
Honorable members, parliamentary services will close us down now. I want the minister 2 minutes, the rest will receive in writing because the minister, parliamentary services will shut us down. Honorable Deputy Minister, 2 minutes and then I'll conclude.
No, thanks, Chair. I think we don't even need to write, but to accept the proposals, because some of the issues that members raised, they were making suggestions in terms of what we need to do. For example, when somebody phones to whether it's gender-based or whatever case it is, they phone. That member, when they phone, that call must be integrated into the system of the police service. Say somebody is raped, for example, if you phone, we must have a system that talks to people who help in that space. So I think these suggestions will be taken on board. The suggestion that we must debrief police, I think it's a matter that we should agree to. The need for IPID and SAPS to interact in such a manner that the expectation of IPID from SAPS is communicated. I think that should be done. I think the IPID will also agree to that. We have discussed that. We have agreed with the head that there must be an interaction between them and SAPS, and there is I think they have started a process where they must have a legal framework which they must sign on how they must they must work together, because they are there to complement each other. They are not antagonistic to each other.
DM, we must wrap up now. Sorry.
Yeah, well, like I said, the issues the members raised are suggested, like visiting police station, the detective college. Will be able to welcome you and show you around what is happening there. In instances where you call, you don't get a proper response, feel free to call us so that we can make the necessary interventions, either in the interaction with other members of SAPS who are not responding. But I will take up the matter with the National Commissioner, that he must talk to his officials so that whenever members call, they must respond. And if they are not there, drop a text message. If they don't, we are there to follow it up. You can contact us. Thanks very much.
Honorable members, thank you very much. Honorable Deputy Minister, I think we've had a 3-hour debate, which was extremely fruitful. We cannot, sorry?
No, I'm saying it was.
Yes, and we've had, remember, we had the debate on IPID, which related to COVID matters. Then we came back and had another debate on IPID, which was part 1 of the budget hearings. Now we've had a 3-hour part 2 of the budget hearings, the Koza case, and we've mentioned the Michels case, as well as the Vicksburg journalist. Honorable Deputy Minister, we would want update and a report on how far you've come with the Koza matter. We'll be meeting next week, Wednesday, where the budget reports will be adopted. We'll also give you an opportunity next week, Wednesday, to present us a report on the firearm amnesty. Next week, Wednesday, we'll want a report on the Michels investigation. And then lastly, the journalist, which was accosted in Vicksburg in the Free State. We don't just want to hear that the journalist fled to Free State. We need a detailed account of what is exactly going on. And there's more. The police can certainly not just get away with harassing individuals and then we do not have a proper report. IPID can do a whole lot more when it comes to the Vicksburg matter. On that note, honorable members, I wish to thank you. 3 hours on a Friday afternoon. We sat from 3 o'clock till 6 o'clock. It has indeed been a marathon session, and I appreciate the manner in which we've engaged with one another. The meeting is now adjourned, and we'll reconvene next week, Wednesday. Thank you very much.
Long live the chair.
Long live the chair.
Thank you, dear.
Thank you, Chair.